This is an OSU update with Kyle Fredrickson. I'm Jenny Carlson. Kyle, Ashton Lampkin back for the Cowboys this spring for spring football and presumably for the fall, obviously. But his injury situation was really almost peculiar last fall. He was hurt, and then he was week to week, and you kept thinking he might come back. We never saw him again. Explain exactly what happened.
It was an interesting situation, and last week we had a talk with Lampkin for the first time since he suffered that injury, and Mike Gundy, other than saying that he needed a haircut, said that Lampkin was good to go, 100% back, and that's good news for Cowboys fans, and especially like we said, it was a very odd year for him because he suffers that high ankle sprain against Texas Tech. Mike Gundy says it's a high ankle, we think. It's probably week to week. We don't expect it to be a multi-week injury, and sure enough, he's gone for the entire season. Well, from what Lampkin told me, it was a situation where he wasn't necessarily on crutches or anything like that. He could walk, he could run, but in terms of making cuts and the things that are so important to cornerbacks, he just couldn't do them. There was too much pain. So, but in his case, making it even more tougher, he was week to week. Every week he thought he might come back, to the point where at that TCU game, they travel on the road, he's on the bus. He said that he was ready to go. He really thought that was his time. To make it even sweeter, he's playing against Doug Meacham, the former OSU assistant who brought him to Stillwater. But once he got out into the field, he couldn't play. There was too much pain, and then really after that point is when they decided to shut him down. So certainly a tough year for him. Even the injury itself was a little bit scary. It was the first time that he told me that he had suffered any kind of injury like that before. If you watch the video of when it happened, his sister actually comes down from the stands to the sidelines and is praying over him. Oh, wow. So it was a pretty wild scene. He said, maybe a little bit of a overreaction because he's the baby in the family, is the way that he puts it. But right now, like I said, he's healthy and returns with a very big group of cornerbacks who are contending for starting time. But you got to figure he's certainly a contender for a week 1 starter spot.
Well, let's talk about that group in just a second. But first, just so people know, he's been granted another year of eligibility already because of the situation last year. The NCAA rules, I don't pretend to know them all hard and fast, but he has already got that year back.
Yeah, he does, and that's very good news, especially looking forward, because this is going to be Kevin Peterson's senior year. After this year he fulfills his eligibility, that kind of ushers Lampkin into that #1 role in 2016 with some young cornerbacks behind him. So looking forward, projecting to this season, you've got Lampkin, you've got Kevin Peterson, and Ramon Richards, who came in and played pretty well last year. And that was one interesting thing talking with Lampkin, was he saw his injury in a lot of ways as a blessing because it gave the Cowboys, well, forced their hand really, but gave them some depth in bringing in Richards and getting a freshman in there and having him ready, as opposed to him being, maybe fresh off a redshirt year coming into this season. So those 3 guys enter the mix, but you can't forget about Michael Hunter, the Cowboys once again getting another graduate transfer to come in and play immediately, a guy who's not affected by the new transfer rules, to clarify that, just because it's not a hardship waiver for him. So 4 guys with almost 70 combined starts between the 3 of them through their careers. Certainly bodes well for the Cowboys defense at a position that was really stripped of depth last season.
Well, and the thing about cornerback is you'll have your guys that are your for sure 1 and 2, but especially in the Big 12, you can't have too much depth at cornerback, can you?
Oh, no, you definitely can't. And now we've seen these offenses evolve with the spreads and the up-tempos. You have to have fresh legs back there, especially with how we saw some of the issues with this defense last year. Teams going over the top, attacking at Ramon Richards was a big issue. And cornerbacks coach Tim Duffy had said that earlier this spring, that's a huge focus, eliminating those X plays, Glenn Spencer likes to call them, is going to be key for them this year. But, with returning that big group of safety or cornerbacks, you also have your safeties in Jordan Stearns and Trey Flowers coming back with experience. You figure that the secondary should be a point of strength for this Cowboys unit.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.